Welcome into Vandy on SI. I'm Joey Dwyer. He's Graham Bacco here after Vanderbilt's 34 to 31 loss in Austin to Texas. The only rapid reaction you'll see when we're not standing on a field or in stands somewhere. But obviously, the trip doesn't appear as if it would have been worth it. Vanderbilt falls to Texas. And Graham, I think the final score a little misleading. Vanderbilt put together some nice drives, kind of as time expired, but entered the fourth quarter down 24 points. It really looked outmanned throughout the first three quarters, basically all of it. Was down 10-0 before it could blink. Hesitate to call it a blowout because it was only a 3-point game, as was last year's game against Texas. But if you're going to compare it to a game in the Diego Pavia, Tim Beck, Eli Stowers era, feels a lot more reminiscent of the South Carolina game last year, which they lost by 21, than the Texas game last year, in which they lost by three. It was that magnitude of one team looks significantly better than the other. Vanderbilt obviously made the comeback, and it says something about this team in itself, but that it didn't get blown out. But felt like it was closer to being a blowout than Vanderbilt was to winning that game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and you mentioned the comeback. I mean, look, it shows the fight that this team has. It shows that this team never quits. They'll never just give up and just move on to the next game. I mean, again, they have the fight, but like you said, it felt more of like a blowout than it did a close game. And, you could talk about the onside kick and how close they came to recovering that and what would have happened afterward if that happened. But again, it was definitely more so of a blowout where it just looked like from the start of the game, for the first play of the game with the Texas touchdown, that 75-yard touchdown that they had, that Texas just controlled the game. They were in control the entire time, and they just looked like the better team flat out today. And they're certainly the better team through three quarters. Vanderbilt, had the fourth quarter come back, made it a little close. But I think if we talk about the overarching, overall narrative of the game, it wasn't that close of a game outside of the fourth quarter comeback because the first three quarters Texas just simply owned Vanderbilt, and that was a story.
Graham, there was a lot that went wrong for Vanderbilt early. I think Texas looked better in a lot of ways, and also
Mhm.
there were some errors on Vanderbilt's end. The tackling comes to mind. I think the broadcast said there was 11 missed tackles in the first quarter alone, and
Yeah.
the most Vanderbilt had in a game was 22 prior to today. I mean, that's a big deal. You see the Ryan Wingo touchdown on the first play from
Mhm.
scrimmage, 75 yards. A few missed tackles from guys who are generally pretty short tacklers, and Langston Patterson and CJ Hurd. I thought that was a story. And
I was
Parkley honestly warned us on Thursday that Vanderbilt hadn't been great on the perimeter with using leverage and bringing guys down, things along those lines. Graham, it came back to bite Vanderbilt in a lot of ways today, and also thought it wasn't strong in coverage for a lot of the day on the perimeter. I thought Arch Manning, not only did Arch Manning have a better day and maybe had some more things come to him, first of all, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Second of
right.
all, I just think there were so many tackling miscues on the perimeter. Let me pull the stat up. Texas
Mhm.
had 258 yards after the catch. Vanderbilt obviously had 199, but 258 is unlike a
Goodness.
number that I've seen Vanderbilt give up really at any point since probably 2023. And at times it did feel like 2023 today. I think you see the differences later in the game, but first of all, Grant, just miscues on the perimeter, tackling, coverage. I think that's part of the reason Vanderbilt lost this game.
Yeah, I mean that was a major part. I mean, shoot, the first play, you had again, you mentioned Langston Patterson. He had a potential, tackle attempt and just completely whiffed at Wingo. And then you had just everyone else just taking poor angles at at tackling attempts. And I mean, no one was after Patterson missed. No one was coming close to tackling Wingo. And of course, you mentioned CJ Hurd. I counted at least four. I believe it was four. I could have been more than four, but I counted four missed tackles there in the first quarter from Hurd himself. So the tackling was unlike what we've seen from the other eight games that we've watched Vanderbilt this year, and especially from Hurd. I mean, because like you said, he's a sure tackler, and that's sort of what he's known for as a tackler in the secondary. And he just did not. It just wasn't his day. I don't know like what was going on with him, but it just was not his day today, and you could just tell from the first quarter. And I thought, when it was 10-0, the Texas was going on that touchdown drive to make it 17-0. Those also missed tackles there from Hurd and other guys down the field. on that drive as well. And so you basically gave them well, you had of course the turnover that gave them 3 free points, but like those tackles there on the drive to make it 17-0 basically gave them a free touchdown. Because if you're able to make those tackles, like who knows, like Texas easily could have punted on that drive if you're able to just tackle. And same thing with the first play of the game. Like if you're able to bring down Wingo, who knows what ends up happening on that drive? But it certainly would have been a 75-yard touchdown. So yeah, missed tackles are a major problem in the first quarter, and it came back to bite them in the end after that comeback for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And it wasn't just the defense that got Vanderbilt into this mess. I
Yeah.
think we got to be clear about that as well.
hmm
0 points in the first quarter for Vanderbilt, 0 points in the third quarter. Not going to do it on the road in the SEC against a team like Texas. Obviously, Texas has had its deficiencies throughout the year, but I mean, that stat line speaks for itself in a lot of ways. Vanderbilt
hmm
outscored Texas 21-0 in the fourth quarter and still lost the game. Diego Pavia threw for 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, his best stat line of the year by far. Maybe that'll help the Heisman numbers if this thing goes well the rest of the way. But man, Grant, they just weren't good enough for 3 quarters. The
Right.
penalties, I thought were a big deal at times offensively.
Mhm.
I think there was a drop by Trey Richardson that it's kind of a
Yep.
microcosm of it. And I would say the biggest story was just how much pressure was on Diego Pavia. And obviously, they have a great front seven, but in the third quarter, he was sacked. And it was the fifth time he was sacked of the day, the most in his Vanderbilt career. I thought that was an emblematic moment of the way this thing was going to. He gets brought down. They pan to his family in the stands. The relatively raucous Pavia section was
Yeah.
everybody was just staring out at the field. And then Brock Taylor
hmm
misses one far right. That could have been a kick that, if everything had gone the way it did the rest of the game, would have tied the game. Graham, I
hmm
thought that was a big deal. Not only that sequence, but just the general protection issues they had, the penalty issues, and obviously the stat line looks great at the end. Eli Stowers, 146 yards. Vanderbilt ran for 5.4 yards per carry with sacks factored out. Still, I hesitate to put a whole lot of stock into those when this is all said and done, just because they were in such a big hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another reason why Texas lost this game, or why Texas won this game and Vanderbilt lost this game, is because Texas was able to get to the quarterback and Vanderbilt wasn't. I mean, that was a huge difference. And I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm just watching Arch Manning, especially I believe that first drive Texas had in the third quarter. I mean, I'm just watching Arch Manning these third downs have all day to throw,
Hmm.
meaning, and while on the other hand, you have Diego Pavia, like you said, was sacked a few times in the third quarter alone. I believe the Texas defense finished with at least 6 sacks, could have been more. I do know they showed at least six on the broadcast. So yeah, that was one of the biggest differences is like if that flips the other way, like Vanderbilt, if they're able to get pressure on Arch Manning and the offensive line for Vanderbilt is able to protect Pavia more, like that I think this game certainly has a different outcome, or at least goes at least somewhat of a different way for sure. So yeah, pressure played a huge role. Missed tackles, like we said, played a huge role, and penalties as well. It's where it's like Vanderbilt, they're able to get something going in the first half on offense, and then you have a holding penalty or like that, set them set them backwards, and then the drive was basically over at that point. And you also mentioned the drop, so yeah, a combination of all those just cost Vanderbilt in the end.
For sure. Graham, you cut out there for a second, but we got most of what you said. I don't know. We had perfect connection for the first, I don't know, like 12 minutes of the show, and then we sputtered out there a little bit. I'll kind of
There,
segue
Joey.
into the end here. Um, Vanderbilt, obviously today the margin for error got
Okay.
significantly smaller. And I just look at it and say, if Vanderbilt wants to go to the college football playoff now, it's got to win out. And I don't know if there's any question about that. There's no precedent for an
Yeah.
SEC team getting it with 3 losses.
Mhm.
And Vanderbilt's got 3 more games. It's got 2 losses. Math ain't hard to do there, Graham. You got me?
In there, but yeah, no, yeah, 10-2. I still think, look, 10-2. Still, I would think it's even in the college football playoff, and the Vandy schedule, if they're able to win out with Auburn, Kentucky, and then Tennessee, especially at Tennessee. Strong win. You also have strong as well on the schedule. So, look, I think 10 and 2 is lost because I think 10 and 2 should get you in the playoffs. And look, remember, Miami just lost as we just lost to SMU. So Miami has two losses. That's going to greatly affect the playoff picture. And so Miami is a team that Vanderbilt fans should root against going forward. And so that'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But with the Miami loss, that also affects the playoff bracket greatly. So if you're a Vanderbilt fan, you root for those teams. Vanderbilt, they lost. So we'll see, but again, control of their destiny if they just keep winning last three games, finish you in the playoffs.
All right, well, we'll pick it up from there. Graham cut out at the very end there, but I think he got his point across. Uh, Vanderbilt with 3 games remaining. Texas, obviously, was a game that was winnable for it, but uh, today went the opposite direction of what Vanderbilt needed at this point. But next week we won't have connection issues. We'll both be at First Bank Stadium. Graham, we finally got you again. But
Okay.
as we
What
wrap
was
up,
the last thing you've heard me say?
it was something. Well, I don't. It cut out like in the middle of a word, so I don't know exactly what
Was
it
that
was.
was that? Did you hear me talk about the playoffs or
Yeah,
no?
we heard all that.
Okay.
It was
Okay.
just like
Okay.
the end of your talk got cut out. But
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Plain and simple. Okay. Basically, summary of what I said is if Vanderbilt wins out, they're 10 and 2. They should be in the playoffs, I would think. And then Miami lost, so that helps Vanderbilt if you're a Vanderbilt fan.
for sure, Graham, I think that the connection issue is a microcosm of the day.
No, I was just
Vanderbilt.
thinking about. I was just about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, but uh, we might have played it off a little bit better than Vanderbilt did down the stretch here. Vanderbilt did come back, but now has some work to do the rest of the way. No margin for error, a lot of pressure on it the rest of the way. It's got to win at Tennessee, and it's got to take care of business at home the next 2 weeks. Graham and I will be there, but a lot of pressure moving forward on this Vanderbilt team. For now, though, I'm Joey Dwyer. He's Graham Bacco. We'll have more stuff throughout the week. Be sure to check out Vandy on SI for all our post game coverage and all our stuff throughout the week. I'm Joey Dwyer. Again, he's Graham Bacco. We'll talk to you soon. God bless. Peace.